Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Success. I am Madi Wolf, and today I'm sitting down with the principals of the architecture firm F9 Productions, Cayko and Alex Gore. Let me tell you, to be honest, these two guys are the most business-minded people I have ever come across, and that's really saying something. Guys, how are you doing?
We're doing great.
Thanks for the compliment. If I could monetize my children, I would.
You know, if anybody can find a way, I think it would be you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for visiting with me. I can't wait to share this story with people, and at least the little that I know. And then, who knows, last time I talked to you guys, so much I'm sure has happened. So I did mention you guys have an architecture firm here in Longmont. Give me a little idea of what does your business look like right now?
Yeah, so we basically do everything residential. So from small additions to pop tops to remodels, interior design sort of, to bigger projects. So custom houses for developers that are going to be on 200 different lots with multiple different variations, to townhomes of everything from 4-plex that you got to 6-plex, to an 8-plex, to a 12-plex, to we're doing a 30-unit apartment building, a 45-unit townhome project. So everything that runs the scope of residential, plus we do BIM. So we create basically models, so tables, floors in the Revit program for manufacturers. We also teach at CU, so we teach students how to use Revit and how to design, and I'm sure I missed some stuff.
Well, I think that describes F9 quite well. This is Lance speaking now, and F9 is kind of the catapult and the base for everything, right? So then from there we've started F10 Productions, which was when we built 2 tiny houses for a Fortune 500 company. Yeah. Is that what it was? And then after that, then there's F11. Alex wrote a book. F12, we purchased a third of an acre in North Longmont where we operate out of. And from there, we're projected to start hopefully within 12 days here on October 15th. To break ground and start construction on 9 condos, one of which we will occupy. It's a commercial space, and then the other are residential units. And then we have F14, which is the contractor. So I went and got my Class B contractor's license, which is you can build almost everything but a skyscraper, technically, right? And then F15 is the next one that we're going to probably try to go after. And Alex actually and I talked about that today. Is what are we going to do with this? So the condominium that we'll occupy on the land that we're developing, there's a sort of like a story and a half space. It's got a big garage door on it. Initially we thought maybe we'd build more tiny houses, but now we're trying to think about like what other kind of service as far as building, designing, creating things can we create? So that'll probably be F15.
Yep. And then above that 1.5 story space, we have our office. So that's where our regular architecture will be. So it's a commercial space. It's a mixed use kind of development that we're doing.
And where is that going to be?
North Longmont, so Maine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's going to be in the Longmont area. Okay, nice. Well, so that's curious that you F9 and then F10. And so what is the significance of the name?
So when Alex and I were going to college together, there were basically two different ways that people were thinking about how to design stuff, right? And there was the old school way, which was, okay, you need to model everything. It needs to be, and by model it, I mean physically model it with like a paperboard, or you'd be sketching stuff or working with clay. And then there was like the new school, and that was kind of, we were called like, and there's no better word for this, but mouse Nazis, because we were just that, hey, everything needs to be done with the computer. And so what happened was that it ended up in the program that we used to make most of our renderings. There was a hot button. And so if you look at your keyboard, there's an F9 key, right? F1 through, I can't even remember, 17 or something like that, 15. But F9 was the hot key to produce these photorealistic architectural renderings. And when we first started the firm, we really didn't have any built work. So basically all of this, what we could show clients to try to convince them that they should hire us is F9 Productions, right? They were productions. They were like these reproductions of renderings and 3D models that we made, and convinced people that, hey, we know how these buildings go together.
I never thought about that. And, every time I see you guys, I always think, I'm going to ask them today. Today is the day I'm going to find out, because you guys have that great logo. It is the literal F9 button on your keyboard. And so, absolutely. So thank you for clearing that up. But so let's go back. You mentioned, so you guys were in school together. Now, is that where y'all met, or did y'all know prior to going into architecture Cool.
We met in school. We instantly liked each other. He's laughing because that's a lie. We didn't actually like each other. I thought he was, arrogant and crazy, and he thought I was crazy. But then after a couple semesters, we realized, man, we saw talent in each other. And then by the third year, we teamed up and we started doing projects together, and then we really gelled. So I went to work for Daniel Liebskin, which is he's a famous architect, and Lance went and worked for Studio HT, and his principals each won United States Architect of the Year at different years. But then the recession hit, so we basically had to get our own work. Mm-hmm. And what's funny about that F9 is that the professors would almost joke, and the professors were naturally older than us, right? So they would say, the computer does things for you. They'd kind of bash it, right? So we'd make jokes to each other. We'd talk into our mouse and say, like, computer make building, and we're like, not too good, we're only fourth years. But what's crazy is that the thought was that the closer you get to sketching and physical model making, the closer you are to reality. But we found that that's actually just the opposite. Now, there was an intermediate period when you're using the computer and it was AutoCAD. So it basically took a hand-drawn, and now you're just doing it in the computer, which is basically lines. And those lines are loose, and when you're drawing a section, they're disconnected. And a lot of problems with architects come from that because everything's not integrated. But now with the new computer programs, especially Revit, which we know and teach and do all this stuff with, you're really modeling the building exactly. And you're modeling it to scale. You're only reducing it because you're putting it on a sheet. So everything, the wall thickness is real, the gypsum board, the floor material is real, and the way that we model it. So we learned when we started earlier that we wanted to boil everything down to the fundamentals. And by doing that, then we could take advantage of the software. And the fundamentals were, why don't we try to mimic exactly how construction works when we're drawing it? And a lot of other firms didn't do that because they were used to the old way of doing it. And the firm principals were older. So when they transitioned into this new software, they just took their same logic through. So we were able to kind of grow fast because of that. And now, because we are in the computer and we're modeling like it gets built, we're actually closer to reality than you ever could be drawing or making a model. And our employees learn faster because we teach that way and they can see everything. People that hire us are happy too. So,
that's interesting. You bring up a really good point. And I think one of the most inspirational things that I learned from you guys early on, I'd love for you to elaborate on it, is how, aside from thinking outside the box and looking ahead to the future of technology and whatnot, you've taken advantage of filling potholes. And I use that term loosely, but you're Revit. You guys were having a hard time finding people to come work for you because of this new technology and how you guys were doing stuff. How did you fix that? I love the story.
So the way we fixed that was Alex sent an email. It was that simple. I mean, I think that's one of the things that always ends up surprising us, even when we do that, or other people. And so what happened was we finally got enough work. I think it was around 2013, somewhere in there, and we needed somebody who they could do production work for us. And the local university here really didn't have that, just because, again, they were kind of still stuck in this, the old way of, okay, it's all got to be done by hand. It's got to be sketched. They have to do watercolors, and there's no real, they think, that once you get into a profession, once you get into a professional setting, then the practitioners will teach you how to do this stuff. And we still hear this from other students that we talk to, that, you're going to learn it once you get into the firm. That's when it matters. And at the end of the day, I think that's a big injustice to the students, because they need to know both. I'm convinced, and that's how we teach our course. So what Alex did is he reached out to the local university and said, "Hey, we've interviewed a lot of your students, and to be honest with you, they're just not hireable. And here's why they're not hireable. So that's not a dig on you guys. It's more of just an observation, and we would love to try to help you guys. So is there any way we can come in and just help and teach at the university level?" And they said, well, yeah, but not in the architecture students. How about the engineering students? And it's basically the same thing we wanted to teach anyway. And we actually, ended up really liking this position as it is. So we teach a Revit course at University of Colorado Boulder, but we do it all the way through from the first week is sketching. So they have a sketchbook. They actually learn how to draw by hand. Then they move into like traditional methods of drafting, with a ruler and a scale and all that sort of stuff. Then after that, then we do what Alex likes to bring in from his Army experience, is the crawl, walk, run sort of way of building people up, right? So we just teach them, you're crawling today, tomorrow you walk, And then after that, at the end of the semester, we're going to let you go and you're going to be able to run right from the get-go. So it's been awesome. It's been a great experience. We've been there for 5 years, and we do have some former students who became TAs, and then their best TAs became employees. It always doesn't happen like that, but it's been a great relationship, and it's also helped us be reflective on ourselves and how we teach, and help us to be patient, and then kind of bring that all back around to the firm.
Yeah. And one of our philosophies too is always to reduce your feedback loop, because then you can move quicker, right? That also comes from the Air Force. It's basically how dogfights work, is that the quicker feedback loop wins the dogfight, because you can adjust. And we really want universities to bring in that real world experience into Revit and into teaching, because that's what they're actually going to be doing. And I just had this observation kind of this weekend. I was at Ohio State. I was in Columbus just for another reason, and I obviously drove my wife around and looked at all the buildings, and the hospital is right by there. And then I started to realize that big universities always have a hospital attached, UC Boulder, all that. And if you think about one of the most respected professions and one of the ones that are extremely financially stable and you get a great reward for it, it's doctors, and nurses and everyone in that profession. And think about their experience before they can work on themselves. They have to, go through obviously lots of training, but they're literally a student doing real world work. They're really in the hospitals. Mm-hmm. It's right on the campus, or, it might be off, but it's still part of the campus. And I wish more programs, I don't know how you do this with other programs, and I'm sure others do it in certain ways. In architecture, they are doing some more design build, but I think it needs to be integrated that much so that you can see the real world ramifications of what you're doing, rather than spinning your wheels in La La Land.
Well, I think there's a lot of other business owners who would love to to have that philosophy to let me go teach somebody, because I know I'm not getting the right people in, and that's tough because there's not so much on the job training, but it's if you knew the basics, then you could be even better in your field. And like Lance said, not everybody becomes somebody that's working with F9, but they're better prepared for wherever it is they are working.
And just for any listeners, I'm an advisor for the ACE, which is Architecture, Engineering, and Construction for the community college here. And they are looking for teachers. And one of our employees is actually going to teach there. So they're looking at other programs. They just don't have enough people. So if you are a professional that has some sort of skill, not only look at a university, but look at your community college and state college and all that.
Wow. So yeah, I never even thought about that, but that's so true. And it's fascinating to me when I heard it from you guys the first time with, hey, we weren't getting the right things, so we decided to do something about it. But so another exciting thing, tell me about your tiny house. So you guys obviously got a lot of respect, a lot of press on that. How did that even come about?
So we, again, I think this was around this was a long time ago. This was probably like 2010. This was probably we were maybe only a year and a half into business, probably about a year. So Alex and we were commissioned our very first project that was substantial. There was an existing foundation that had been bought up by this developer for very cheap after the Great Recession, or during the Great Recession, and then he said, I want to put a duplex on it, but I want it to be cool. So he hired us to do it, took a huge chance on us. So we were celebrating after getting that commission and coming back from Boulder, and we called one of our buddies, and half of our profession was laid off, right? And then the people who were still there, a lot of them weren't happy, because you can imagine the kind of work that you're just doing just to get by, and just it's whatever you can take, right? It's feast or famine in the construction industry. So this guy that we called, he was working up in South Dakota, and he hated his job and all this other stuff. And we said, well, how much money do you have? And he goes, I don't know, about $25,000. We're like, well, just quit your job. You don't have any kids. You have zero responsibility. Why don't you build a tiny house? And he's like, I would love to do that. And I was like, yeah. And then you could just travel the United States. Little did he think that Alex and I would go home. I mean, this was like 10 minutes after we got off the phone with him, start a website. We called it BlakesTinyHouse.com, and worked with him and then another gal that we went to school with, and produced these really cool concepts for tiny houses. They were the opposite of like the trend that was happening, back then, which was everything needs to look like a cabin. Everybody wants this cute little quiche kind of design. And we said, what if they started to fold? What if walls could fold down and they could become decks, or could fold up and help shade from the sun and stuff like that? We had such an organic following that happened on the. It was probably the best examples that we've ever come up with like, oh wow, this is an idea that caught on the internet. The web, we didn't have to really push the website too hard. It just would get naturally over 100 people would look at it a day, and back then that was really good. And then a lot of blogs picked it up. So like there was all these tiny house blogs. He never ended up building it, but the traction was so great from all the organic traffic we would get that then TV producers started calling us, and because then this is like the beginning of all these tiny house shows, right? And they were starting to pitch them to networks. We did a couple what we're known as sizzlers. If anybody's been in the biz, they'll come out and they'll shoot like a mini episode with you, and we did something like that, but it never went anywhere. And then finally, after we did get employees and we got help get some from CU and do all that sort of thing, and the economy started to come back in 2013. We had enough cash and we had enough employee backing behind us and enough work on the horizon that we took a leap and we said, okay, we're going to take out a loan and we're going to build this tiny house. Because Alex had went down, like I think 2 or 3 weekends before we decided to do this, went down to the Denver House Show or something like that, right? Exactly. So like if custom builders go down there and everybody gets together and vendors and everything, right? And there was a production company, a television production company, and they were saying, hey, we're looking for anybody in Colorado who wants to build a tiny house. And Alex said, well, we're kind of thinking about it. When we weren't even really thinking about it, but he comes back to the office, and then we were thinking about it.
Well, it was sign up if you're building a tiny house in the area. So I go, oh yeah, we are.
You don't let the opportunities like that pass you by.
Yeah, we just say yes a lot. I think it's easier to say no afterwards. You can bite off a chunk and then go, I don't like that. Right. So it was a scramble to get funding. We got the funding in place. It was a scramble all the way through. We ended up doing one episode with HGTV, which was great. But it was if you look it up, you just Google Alex and Lance's amazing foldable tiny house or something like that. You'll be able to find us. But we finished it. We finished the house. It lived at the Weekasa Tiny House Hotel in Lyons, Colorado, which is just up the road from the town we live in, for about 2 years. Then we ended up selling it. But what it did is it put us on television every 2 weeks. And then it put us on television 2 more times because there were like these mini follow-up episodes we did. It put us in a couple magazines. It got us published. And a lot of architects, this was even before Alex was licensed. So I was the only one I think I got licensed when we were building it, actually.
Did you?
Yeah. So to put it in perspective, like a lot of architects work their entire lives. And one of their big goals is to get published. Mm-hmm. Well, it put us in several magazines, several books, on television, as I said, and then it also put us on the red carpet, which in New York City, which was fantastic. So we won our first International Architecture Award. I hope it's the first. I hope there's many. Mm-hmm. But so now we get to come back to little old Longmont, Colorado, a town of 100,000 people, and say, we're not only the largest firm, but we're the only internationally award-winning architecture firms in town. And then what that led to building 2 more tiny houses. So the next year, we got contacted by a Fortune 500 company. And they said, hey, I saw you guys on TV. I saw your website. We love the concept, but can you make it crazier? And they didn't say it in that way, but can you make it more robust, right?
Mm-hmm. For crazier. Can you make them longer and bigger? Can you then, we only had half the deck fold down and half the awning fold up to protect the glass. We have a whole glass wall. Said we want all of the whole wall to fold down and then a whole awning to fold up and then double it on the other side. Then we want a sky deck and we want that on hydraulic so that it can come down for aerodynamics. Some of it was we kind of had our input, like if you're going to have a sky deck, we need to have it come down for aerodynamics, and we need to have the railings fold in. Then we need to have a foldable stair that goes up there. So it got kind of nuts. And then they said, we want 2 of them, of course, not just one. So it's so funny. Lance, we're a contractor firm now, and we're going to be building our 9 unit kind of complex. And one of the bankers, we said, hey, how much work can we do ourselves? Like, oh yeah, you can do non-structural work, stuff like that. He's like, we don't want you, doing steel work and, getting a crane. And we both like laughed in our head and looked at each other because like, oh, we've already rented a crane and done steel work. Just no one said no. So
Yeah.
That's why we did it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you guys are so my favorite business-minded people, because like you just said, you don't say no. or rather, you say yes a lot, and because you don't know where that's going to lead. And how many people can do just I want to help somebody out. Joe, we'll start a website. Again, it's just these haphazard thoughts that are wouldn't that be kind of cool? That turn into snowballs, and it just rolls and rolls, and eventually, it benefits you.
And there can be a philosophy and a system behind that, because when we started the firm, we knew that we were, again, doing a whole bunch of addition work and stuff that was fine, but it wasn't our passion. And we made it a goal. We said every year we're going to do at least one project that we really love, one project that no one can dictate to us, one project that we're in charge of. So each one of those projects have paid back. I can't remember all of them, but 2012 was one. So we said we were driving out with our girlfriends to the Grand Canyon, and Lance and I were in the front seat. It's hilarious. We put them in the back seat. And we said, okay, the world's going to end. It's obvious. It's 2012. So we did doomsday dwelling. So we did a house for fire, against wind, and actually a nuclear bomb, against earthquakes, and against floods. And then that took off too. Now we're doing this. So then we did, the 3 tiny houses in total. We're doing our own development project. I think we've done a couple more, but those are the big ones.
Yeah, and
Amazon.
Yeah, the Amazon one. That was a huge one.
The one. That's the one I want to hear about. Yeah, just the fact that you guys just both feet all the time.
Yep. The critical part, I think, that I would just want to note though about the 2 tiny houses was the 2 tiny houses. I didn't want to do it right away. I didn't want to build them, and Alex, I made it very clear to Alex. But then Alex said, "Well, what about if we do it for this much?" And I go, "Let's do it for that much." So we did it for that much, and then that much allowed us to become financially independent, such that we could start looking at a piece of land. Like every time we do a project like this, right, where we're taking a leap and we're saying yes, there's always, like Alex was saying, there's always seems to be this reward, because we're extending ourselves and taking a risk and everything. And even to buy the land, like we didn't buy it all completely outright. We had to stretch ourselves and find a land lender, which is not easy to do. It's kind of difficult to purchase land without just all cash. So that's what I'm really proud of the fact that we are at that level this year of we have a project. It is the only person who's dictating anything to us, really, because we've passed through the city's crazy system and we've got all the permits ready to pick up. Now it's just the money. Trying to secure a multi-million-dollar loan isn't easy. You have to really prove a lot of different things, and people have to trust you and that sort of thing. But I'm excited for the leap that happens after that one, because I think that one could be exponential.
And I also don't want to misrepresent this. I do believe that everyone that wants to should carve out their own time to do whatever they think is right, and not put expectations that that anything's going to come back to you. I think you really have to lay down and just say, I'm just doing this for fun, and I have no expectations, because if you have expectations, you're going to start to morph what you do to fit those expectations. And then you also have to do it just for fun, because these do not come stress-free.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
These 2 tiny houses, with the steel folding and hydraulics, have a 16th to a 32nd of an inch tolerance. So when you're dealing with steel and with welders and then paying out money to do this, it is stressful. But so you got to make it cool.
Things you do for love. I'm doing this podcast. You guys do your podcast. I would imagine that started as a way, again, for the education and share what it is you know. How did that even get started?
So that, again, started as a fun project, and it morphed into inside the firm. The first one, which is, I'm so glad is off the air. It's taken off.
Sorry, folks.
It was called Driving to Work. So it was Lance and I on Tuesday and Thursday would drive to see you. So on our car ride, we would literally just turn on the microphones. I don't even know what we talked about, but I remember my friends' moms saying, "Oh yeah, we listen to it all the time." They listen to that more than they listen to this one, because this one's about architecture and that one was about nonsense and whatever we wanted.
Nonsense.
Yeah, it was literally one of our friends said, "I feel like this is just you guys rambling as you drive to work." We're like, that is the title of the podcast. So, and then that died just because I think it was just too crazy, and it got some traction. And then we finally decided that Lance and I were doing so much different stuff, And it was evidence in this last podcast that was Friday. I was flying out. I couldn't be there, so Lance just did it with the other guys. And one of the things I said, hey, ask the guys what projects they're doing. Because he doesn't know what everyone's doing because there's 8 guys, all that. So it started as fun, and then it morphed into something that I think is cool.
Well, organic, I think, is the word we're looking for here, and that's that. If you can find, if there's things that you're doing in your life that can cross pollinate into your personal life into professional life, and professional life into personal life, and if they're good things that you're doing, right? Like if you're having fun boozing all the time, probably shouldn't cross it over in professional, right?
Probably not. No.
Yeah. But if you have fun talking with your best friend, and if you can morph that into something, by all means go for it. And so like there's a couple other examples I could give of that. So like when Alex and I were just working out of his apartment, and that was our version of, we started out of a garage, right? A bare bones apartment. Is every Friday we would go play basketball at noon with our buddies, and then we would come back and eat crappy food because we deserved it, because we were young, like 25, 26.
Sonic.
Yeah, a lot of Sonic and stuff like that. So now it's F9 Fridays. So like the guys, guys know that we're gonna do now. And then we've coupled that with the podcast. So the podcast gets recorded on Friday morning. We have a fun time. We bring the guys in. We do like a little Jeopardy quiz thing, so they're involved with it. Then the winner gets to pick where we go out to eat. So it's and then there's gangster rap that plays the whole time too. So like it's like and then the guys have kind of taken on this whole other. Now they're in charge of radio stations. So now they do Metal Monday, they do Throwback Thursday. Something happens on Tuesday and something happens on Wednesday, right?
Man, we used to have Millennial Monday, and then that got crushed. Now it's
now it's
metal. Throwback Thursday. We have our regular one, and then Gangster Rap Friday.
Yeah. So there's stuff like that, and like another one that came up. Then we've done. Alex for some reason, like really. I don't know if you had. Did you have a limo when you had a birthday? Is that where this came from?
No. So Daniel Liebskin, they had a Christmas party, and it was in New York. We didn't have a limo, but like they went to like the fanciest restaurant, like glass sculptures that you could take shots from, and just craziness. So I don't know who. We just decided at Christmas we're gonna have a Christmas party.
And this is the year we first had this is probably the first consecutive 12 months we had consistent employees.
Yeah, at least 3.
Yeah. So we felt like we had to do something.
Yep. But we didn't tell them. We just said hey, we might be visiting a job site on Friday. So we're all working. The limo shows up in the back, and we said, "Hey, you guys have your boots? We're gonna go, visit some job sites." Like, yeah. And they're all just sitting there, not excited. They visited job sites all the time. Okay, look in the back. They look out the window, and there's a big stretch limo, and they're like, "Holy crap!" And then we go out there and open the trunk. It's just full of booze. Like, this is how we're visiting job sites. So every winter we have a winter party, and then we just started. We're having a summer party. So we went out shooting, but we didn't drink while we were shooting. We're responsible.
2 different parties.
2 different separate parties. Yep. And then we tried to do something fun every winter. So like we did go-kart races, and then we went in the limo and drank, and so
yeah. So I think somehow it's so I don't know. I still can't explain this. I don't know how many podcasts or how many interviews I'll have to do to try to explain. Like there's something about a fun experience that you don't even have to put any effort into, but at the same time, like how do you recognize that experience as being valuable? So it's sort of like being unconscious, like conscious but unconscious the whole time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like how do you get yourself into those moments, and then how can that become a really fun tradition or practice that you do in your professional life? You get what I'm trying to go with here at all?
I don't, but I'll nod my head.
Yeah. It's just that you're doing something fun, right? You're like, yeah, let's go play basketball. Okay, and now we're gonna do it every Friday because that was fun, and then you keep doing that. But you didn't know in the end it was going to translate into now at our firm we always have a lunch together every Friday, and we ask about the guys' personal lives and what in a good way, and like what do you got planned for the weekend? Do you have any how's everything going? And we touch base and stuff like that. Somehow, if you're in the position we are and you're becoming an entrepreneur, if you can do the fun stuff, but just know that like, maybe how could I ever turn that into, and if it can happen organically, that's where I'm getting.
Well, and I think that you guys are a prime example because you have a very, very good crew. And where are you guys up to?
8.
Eight. So you guys have, you have 8, and it's a very large firm, and they're such nice guys, and you can tell that you all get along, and you kind of have to because of what you're doing. Everybody kind of has to be on the same page to a certain extent to be as successful as you guys are. And so I think it just stands to reason that things would just start forming, and that you would want to spend time with each other outside of work, which is not typical. And I think that is something really special, and I think that makes for a really strong team, and that goes back to you two, and who are best friends and partners, because a lot of the entrepreneurs that I talk to, they're either solopreneurs or they're family, and so but you two to come together as partners. I mean, what was that in your head? I'll ask you first, Lance. I mean, what did you always want to partner up with somebody, or did you envision that I'm going to work for somebody else, or I'm going to work by myself? I mean, how did you see it?
I always saw it as and I'll be completely honest with you, is that you need to build the strongest. I saw the faults in myself, and then I saw like, oh, Alex can fill that gap, and I hope he sees that they're the faults in himself. And now what's interesting is, like, I was just giving him the compliment the other day is, well, when we first started, like, I had all this construction experience, and Alex had a lot less. He still had some and a lot less, right? And then I felt like Alex was better at looking from a 40,000 foot perspective at a problem and attacking it that way. And then I was better, making sure the 40,000 foot problem happened from ground up, and then we kind of filled the gap. Mm-hmm. So, but since then, when it's been awesome, and it just happens to experience, is like now Alex is taking on these huge projects and just controlling the whole situation. Going to a meeting. He just had a meeting about this big apartment project, which will technically be, I think, our biggest building or development wise, right? Units wise, I would think. Mm-hmm. But for him to go in there and say, like, to all the engineers, here, do this, the developer, give everybody tasks, and run a team like that. Whereas, maybe 10 years ago when we first started, when he didn't have that kind of construction experience, and was there teeth grinding that happened along the whole way? You know what I mean? Where people were just like stumbling along the whole way, and did we take some serious licks and avoid litigation and all kinds of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That I think that's where it happened. So for me, it was always, I know I don't possess these skills. Who can I partner up with that possesses these skills? Does that person see that he doesn't possess the skills I have, and then can we make this happen and then grow together? So
you always knew that you needed some other person to fill, like you said.
Only when I got to architecture school.
Right.
And then I saw like how much I fell short in categories, because you don't know what you don't know until you get into, especially architecture school, where it's highly competitive, and you have all these different, like, pretty brilliant people, trying to blend art and engineering together and make it happen. And when you think, oh, I've got all the engineering side, but you just had no idea how much they don't care about that,
right,
for good reasons and bad reasons. And then you go like, wow, I need this art side. How do I fill that in?
Yeah, that was a semi-epiphany too. Not that I was the bee's knees in high school. And it's funny that I only realized this in college, because a lot of my friends, I came from Rochester, Minnesota is a nice area, right? The Mayo Clinic's there, IBM. Mm-hmm. So, people would go to Harvard and be doctors and stuff. But I didn't realize how smart people were until I got to school. And maybe it's because I didn't really, to college. And maybe it's because I really didn't get into it. I was like, holy cow, this is competition. In our architecture school, it was 300 people, and it got down to 50 after the first year. I mean, you got cut. And then by the third year, it was down to 40 because people just dropped out. But, like, you had to be top 50 out of 300 to get in. But going back to your original question, Lance and I thinking about where we're going to work. First plans worked out perfectly. I worked at New York City, City of Dreams, all that fancy architecture firm. Lance wanted to be in Colorado. He just loved nature, outdoors, top-end firm, and everything worked out perfectly. And then the recession hit, and then everything crashed. And when we graduated, our architecture school rented out the top of this hotel. It's a boutique, really nice, beautiful hotel. And we go, oh yeah, in 10 years, we'll start an architecture firm, because you need experience, all this stuff. So we were technically slated to start our architecture firm in May 2018. And we just started it about 9 years early.
Wow. And what a 9 years.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to ask you about, because you kind of touched on it, but then I segued you too soon. Going back to doing what needs to be done to get what you want. Tell me about Amazon.
That's all Alf. I mean, it's always a partnership, right? There was he had tasks for me when I came in, and I helped get it into the media and everything. But to be completely honest with you, it was a bit of a surprise for me to walk in and go, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're doing that." And here's what he was doing.
So, yeah, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm designing an Amazon tower for Denver. And I'm sure he's like, why, or whatever. And maybe these days he doesn't even ask why. He's like, sure. So Amazon was narrowing down, and they picked 20 places, and they wanted bids from everyone. And a bunch of places were giving proposals. And Denver was only giving, like, they were hiding it, and they weren't doing a design for it. And we realized as architecture, everyone has a capability. You have a capability that not everyone else has because you've honed it, right? So architects' capability is that we can take a concept and visualize it. So what Amazon was looking for was 8.2 million square feet. So my initial idea, just out of curiosity, is how big is 8.2 million square feet? Like, honestly, I don't know. I'm an architect. I should know.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to design a tower for Denver because they're in the running. So I started to mass out how many that would work, and it worked out to a bunch of different buildings. And then I go, well, I actually know a site in Denver because I'm down in Denver all the time. And then I know a little bit about design because that's my job. So then I decided, okay, well, let's have one big tower, and then let's elongate it so that we can capture the sun, right? And maybe there's some solar panels and all that. And then you get more views on both sides, so more natural light. So it's elongated and skinny. And then I go, well, we should probably twist it so that we can see the mountains. That'd be great. And then essentially, like, if you think about structures, if you know fundamentals of structures, and this is where we always boil back to the fundamentals, is that how does a tower stand up? It has a central core. That's actually not great for stability. If you stand straight up with your feet together, you can be pushed over easily. If you spread your feet apart, that's even better. But then if you stagger them, so 1 foot is forward and 1 foot is back, that's even the best. So I said, what if we made an arc in the bottom of the building so that the whole lower part could be a park? And then we made it so that it was kind of mimicking a good stance. And every time when we can do these fun projects, the design starts to design itself. So then once you do that foot thing, you go, how do I take advantage of that? I don't have a core in the center anymore. And that's where the elevators go up and down. But now I have 2 cords on the side, so it's structurally more stable. And some people were questioning me on that, and I was laughing. I was like, no, this is actually better. You don't know what you're talking about. This is actually better. So now that you have 2 cords, you can do a circular loop. So now when you can do a circular loop, you don't have one elevator and one shaft. You can have 50, 60, 100, because they're going into a loop. So now you can actually get people quicker to places because you have 4 shafts, each filled with 100 elevators if you really wanted it, instead of, 16 shafts. And that's what takes up a skyscraper. So the higher you go, the more shafts you need because you only have 1 elevator per shaft. So now you just reduce that, so then you increase everything. Anyways, I really went into the weeds there. Sorry about that.
Tell her how many days did you take you to produce that?
2 days.
Oh my God. To design a building for Amazon in Denver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Alex didn't have exactly how the internal spaces would go out. It was more of a massing exercise. It was more of a massing and a visualization exercise. As Alex was mentioning, and to get to that level. But I think that just goes to show. I think one of the most profound things that we heard from many of our professors were, when you're a second year student, so you go to school for 5 to 7 years, typically to be an architect. When you're a second year student, you can juggle 2 balls. But by the time you get out in your 5th year, you can juggle maybe 6. And by the time you're practicing architecture, you should be able to juggle 12. And I think that's like a testimony to what Alex was saying is architects who practice long enough and jumped through all the hoops, they can juggle 12 balls and they can do it quickly. So Alex was able to produce all these awesome renderings with the help of like Google SketchUp, wasn't it? So then he took
Google Earth.
Google Earth, yeah, that's right. So he took the model that he made in the software that we use and then put it into Google Earth. And what was awesome about that is all of a sudden we could turn everybody, and everybody knows all the landmarks in Denver if you're from Denver or Colorado, right? You know where the stadium is, you know where the museum is, you know, you can just, you notice the skyline. Everybody knows the cash register building, you know, that's like the big skyscraper landmark and everything. So what Alex did is said, your job, Lance, is to, in the next day, the next couple days, especially just like a 24-hour blitz, because I think Amazon was going to decide and pare it down from like 100 cities to 20 within like a day or two after he finished the design. So it was a blitz, but he goes, you're the social media guy. I need you to get us in the press. So then I came up with a plan, and based on, you know, a couple of the huge pages that I run online, I used that formula to set up like a posting schedule, and I was already verified that I could start boosting posts and targeting them, and I just knew how and what to do. So within, I think, a day of doing that, by the time I started right away in the morning, I think at 6 or 7 a.m. Fresh, and then by the end of it, we had Fox 31 called us, and we did an interview, which was awesome.
That's right, yeah.
So awesome, because then we made our goal, and by the end of that day, I told my wife, I was like, because I had put our ideas out there in so many different ways and talked to so many people and interacted with just thousands of people that day online, I felt like I was being pulled apart, like physically. And then the next day, then we got, I think 9 News picked us up. Local papers picked us up. So Longmont Times Call, the local paper did. And then we got a call. Then we got a phone call. So nothing happened other than a ton of media, which was great, right?
Yeah,
People love earned media is tough, but if you can do it, then more power to you, because you can write your own stories and make your own path. But it physically landed us, you know. So then some of our fellow architect buddies said, like, well, why'd you guys do that? Like, yeah, it's cool, you got in the paper, everything, but like, did you get any work? Like, as Jeff Bezos?
Yeah. How many skyscrapers have you designed because of this, right?
Yeah. Real, you know, we're just like getting down to that. And part of it's probably jealousy. I don't know. But we did get a call, and it wasn't about a skyscraper, but it was about 12 townhomes. And it was this local lady in town, and she goes, hey, saw you guys in the paper. You're exactly what we're looking for. We need somebody new, innovative. I just really appreciated what you guys did with that. And then it took a while, and we finally signed them.
They said, oh, we want to actually do townhomes. And I'm like, oh, that's what we actually do. So that's perfect. And then, so I've been talking to USA Today, because they're just getting ready for whenever they pick. And if they choose Denver, they'll probably use our renderings, because we're the only ones that designed it for it. I hope they choose Denver, just because I think it'd be awesome, and you know, for us. But I think they'll go East Coast, just logistically. You know, who knows? And who knows when they're even going to announce? But yeah, so that could be cool if they choose Denver.
Just because you didn't know how big something was. It's amazing.
And please remind me. So I need to tell all of our architecture friends. They said, oh, we don't have some designs for these other cities. No one else did it. So we don't have enough time, but I'm going to we know a whole bunch of architects. If you're in these cities, I will give you the contact who wants a design for these cities. I don't know how many people will pick us up on that.
Yeah, at USA Today. Because I was telling I don't know how impressed your wife was, but my wife was like, you guys could be on a nationally, you know, syndicated newspaper, and your name would be right there. And I was like, yeah, it's awesome. They just got to pick Denver, so now we just got to hope that, you know.
That's hilarious. I didn't even think about it that way.
You're like, we'll see. Yeah. So big things on the horizon. Thank you so much for visiting with me. And I definitely, I'm looking forward to the next episode of Inside the Firm. You guys actually it is very conversational. It is quite funny. I highly recommend you check it out. Keep us posted. And, you know, thank you so much for visiting with us and for proving that, you know, you just got to say yes. It definitely pays off.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on, Marty.
You betcha. Bye.